back to another episode of our series, COVID-19 from Crisis to Creation, here on Mentor TV. I'm Patricia Falco Beccalli, your host. Well, as the lockdowns are starting to be softened across the globe, we are going to look at what are the potential opportunities, and especially here in Europe, how is Europe going to play out in terms of economic growth, recovery, job creation, and what sort of lessons have we learned from it? But especially the job growth is going to be something that I'm going to discuss with our very special guest today, no other than the former Prime Minister of Italy, Enrico Letta, who is joining us. And well, he's now the professor of Sciences Po, which is a university in Paris. Mr. Letta, thank you so much for spending some time with me here on Mentor TV.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, the first thing I would really like to do is to kind of start from an overall picture, Mr. Letta, and then start drilling down at the individual stimulus programs, recovery programs that have been put in place or starting to be put into place as the economies should start to recover soon, and then really look at some details in terms of job creation. Now, I have prepared one slide I would like to confront you with, first of all, and so let me share my screen with you, and I wonder what your take is on that one. So I'm going to share right now for everybody to see. Can you see it?
Yes, I do it.
Okay. So to jumpstart the European economy, we will have to use all levers available at national and European level. The EU budget will have to be adapted to this crisis. It is time to think outside of the box. Any option compatible with the EU treaty should be considered. And that is a quote from the European Council President Charles Michel. I stop sharing now and go back to you. Mr. Letta, what do you say, especially about the out-of-the-box thinking, but staying within the EU treaty?
I think it's a very wise and good idea because, you know, this crisis is completely unprecedented. We have no idea, and we have no crisis like the one we are facing today. It is clear that even the previous crisis, 2008, 2012, was completely different. Today is deeper. And it is different also because there's an external threat that was not the case 10 years ago. So it is unprecedented, and we have the problem of the fact that in the past years, at the end of the day, when sun was out, we didn't fix the roof of our European construction. That is my maybe first important take. And we didn't fix the roof because the sun was there. And so we thought, okay, it's not so important, it's not so urgent. But now a new crisis, unprecedented, a deeper crisis is there. And so we think that maybe we have to fix the roof, but maybe today is too late because the storm is there, is an unprecedented storm. So I think it's right, Michel, when he says it is necessary to think outside the box, because there are tools that we used in the past, and we have to continue to do it, but we have to invent and to create a new toolbox. So my point is how to create a new toolbox, how to find a creative new activity today at the European level.
Okay, and just to pick up on this, we didn't fix the roof. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, because we had the crisis in 8-12, and we spent 4 years from 8 to 12 to find first solutions. First solutions were the new monetary policy, whatever it takes, the creation of the ESM, a starting of the banking union, not the completion, but starting of the banking union. But then we stopped, and we stopped because the crisis was over. And now we understand that the roof is not completely fixed, because, for instance, we need to have a more dynamic and more effective ESM. And the ESM, with the present rules, is not enough for what is necessary. But also, it is not enough to work with the present tools in the relationship with the real economy. I think we will have the opportunity to talk around the problems of jobs or SMEs, and they need liquidity, the SMEs. They need liquidity. And the ECB can't give them liquidity. The ECB can have a very important mission, that is to stabilize from a financial point of view. But SMEs, they need liquidity. So we have to build up a new toolbox able to help real economy. This is, in my view, the most important new toolbox. And the second part is for social crisis. That is the other main point related to the centrality of the person, of the worker in this very crisis, very important crisis.
Yeah. Mr. Letta, this toolbox, it's intriguing. You repeated this one, and I'm looking at all the guns being pulled out so far, be it on a monetary level with the ECB. We had the last meeting last Thursday. Interest rates stayed the same, but interesting comments out from Christine Lagarde, the chief of the ECB. And what we have is this new pandemic emergency purchasing program, 750 billion euros worth of it, on top of the quantitative easing, the QE program, buying assets up to 20 billion euros each month. Then we have the fiscal announcements. We are talking about the recovery fund in Europe. Amongst the governments, European governments, there should be a decision whether it's going to be, or how much is going to be loan and how much is going to be grants, I think this Wednesday, Mr. Letta. So we have that one. And of course, we have the unemployment reinsurance scheme also coming out and being debated. Is that a good toolbox, good enough toolbox, enough money? And will what is being printed out in theory really apply and arrive at what you just mentioned, SMEs, the real people in the economy that have been basically taken away the opportunity to make money over the last 2 months?
The crisis is in reality 3 crises altogether: financial, real economy, and social. Last time we failed because we didn't recognize that crisis was 3 crises together, even last time. This time the social one is more important because it is social and healthcare together. That was not the case 10 years ago. So 3 crises altogether. We need 3 toolbox, and we need 3 interventions. The first one, financial. It is in the hands of the central bank, of the ECB, and it is until now the most effective response ever, because the ECB didn't intervene 10 years ago, just in 12 they started. So this time I think the intervention of the ECB was very effective and very positive. They will continue, but the financial stabilization of the system today is allowed and guaranteed by the ECB, and that's good. We need 2 toolbox that weren't there because they weren't part of the mission of the European Union until now. First one, how to support the real economy, and the second one, how to support fight against unemployment and how to support healthcare. And for these 2 missions, we need, for real economy, a very effective, wide, large recovery fund. Until now, this is the most demanding challenge because we didn't have such a response, and we need to have this new creation. This is why I said creativity. And the second big toolbox that we have to build up is on social and healthcare. And here too, we didn't have anything because of the story, the history of the European Union, because of the UK veto, we didn't have any important improvement in the integration on social affairs. With the UK on board, the veto for any improvement on social affairs was there. So now it's time to move on and on social and healthcare. And you mentioned the program SURE, that is a program against unemployment, and I add to that the use of the ESM for sanitary expenditures. So it is the first time that the European Union is focusing on healthcare expenditures, and this is with the ESM. So these two toolbox, one for real economy and the other one for social, for the social challenge, are the two new toolbox. They are trying to build up this toolbox, but the true challenge to understand is the glass is full empty or is half full or half empty. Is exactly to see if this toolbox will be successful or not.
Yeah. Okay. So we are still in a moment, I guess, where we are poking in the dark, whatever it is, be it us consumers or people perhaps in precarious situation, as well as really the leadership. But this recovery fund is an interesting one, and please allow me, Mr. Letta, to dwell on a little bit about it, because it is so important to have a Europe perhaps being a little bit more collaborative, less starting to be fragmented, because what this recovery fund really is about is to finance on a European governmental level the countries, giving them enough money to then pass on and help their underlying economies, whatever the economic state is. And here I would like you to elaborate perhaps on Italy a little bit. With Italy, the economy has always been a little bit precarious. It is the third biggest economy in Europe. However, recession hit already fourth quarter of 2018. Unemployment now going up, I think, towards 10% right now since the beginning of the year. Youth unemployment very high. A downgrade from Fitch when it comes to credit rating, simply because the debt to a GDP ratio may go from 130 even above that. So will this recovery fund be really pushed through and thus help Italy, or do we see now more and more this north-south divide, and collaboration is going to be difficult or perhaps take too long for countries such as Italy to really do something right now for their people that need to go back to work?
I think this is the main challenge we are facing. The divide was there, and the big risk of this crisis is that the gap can be wider. And this is why the recovery fund is so important, because recovery fund and the creation of this bazooka to tackle the deepest real economic crisis of our era needs to be very, very effective. And when I say effective, I say, first of all, it has to be a mix between loans and grants. Second, the sources of where to find resources for this recovery fund. I think it's important to have both bonds by the European Commission with the European Commission guarantee, and we have to use also the budget, the European budget. That is very important because in this very period, the European Union was discussing the new budget for the next 7 years. And it is also the opportunity to move on and to have an important step to increase the budget, because until now the budget was around 1% of the European GDP. It was too small, and the fact that UK is out is reducing also the budget. So now we need to move from 1% to 2%. I think we have to be very ambitious, and with all this money, we have to create this recovery fund to relaunch real economy in Europe. And it is important to do so with the European budget because of procedures. The European budget is a very communitarian procedure. That means it is in the hands of the European Commission under the control of the European Parliament. That means that all the, all the usual procedures, all the guarantees are there, and it is important for countries with the idea that they don't want to give money to the southern countries. with all these guarantees, I think they can accept this measure, because it is a measure giving all guarantees that this money will be controlled, and this money, these resources will be well spent with all the European procedures. And that is important also because in the past we used other tools like the ESM, that is an intergovernmental tool. That means intergovernmental tool without the intervention of all the European guarantees and European Parliament, European Commission. That is, in my view, the possibility to give more guarantees to all the European countries. So I think this is the right path, and I hope that will be effective.
Yeah, I hope so too. But I wonder, why does it take so long? Why is there not more solidarity? Because at the end of the day, I'm just asking myself, we've been in this European Union for really quite some time now, and acting as one, especially facing a global challenge, which we had before, and it's not going away, like the climate crisis, for example. But with this one, you know, individual economies just being unplugged for months on end, isn't it a no-brainer that everybody just pulls together? But I see more, you know, anti-European sentiment also in your country. I'm seeing it in Germany. You see it also still in France. That solidarity is something that the Pope even referred to not too long ago. Is starting to miss. Where's the lack of conviction? Where's the lack of trust? That yes, of course we're going to pass on the money to Europe, north, south, east, west. It doesn't matter, because we have to continue to be a group of countries pulled together on a global stage towards Asia, towards America, and any other economy to be strong.
Yes, it is because of this crisis is there, not as a first crisis. We have to consider that we are facing this crisis at the third big crisis, and as I said, the deepest one, after two big crises that were tackling or clashing the solidarity. And the first one was the financial crisis, and the second one was the crisis of refugees around 14 and 15. These two crises were there, and they affected the solidarity among European countries, because the lack of tools at European level to manage these two crises in 8 and in 14, 15 had as outcome the idea that solidarity was not so present at European level. But in reality, solidarity was not so present because the European institutions didn't have all the tools and all the legitimacy. And when you have to find solution only in the cooperation among member states, then you fail, because it is very complicated to ask one leader, one national leader, who is elected by his own constituency, national constituency, to be fair and to be leader also for the neighboring country. He's elected by his own constituency. So
let me just interject there, Mr. Letta, if I may. So why should it work this time around if we failed as European leaders, or they failed as European leaders, to cobble it together, be it in the financial crisis, be it then in the refugee crisis? You know, why should they pull together right now? What is the interest?
I think the experience in the last 2 months, that are the first months of this COVID crisis, is showing us some optimism. And I say that because we never had such a fast and effective European response ever. In 2 months, at the end of the day, they did more in comparison with what happened in the crisis 8-12. In the crisis 8-12, they took 4 years to do less in comparison of what they are doing now in 2 months. Because what we are doing in this very period, just in 2 months, that is enormous, with the idea of the decision-making in politics and so on, and in comparison with last time, when they took 4 years. And that is the reason why I'm optimistic, because I saw this determination I saw the fact that they are building up these new tools just in few weeks. Of course, it's not enough because it is necessary to implement this, to conclude this process and to implement it without bureaucracy and being very, very effective and very fast. That is the need today. But until now, the creation of all these tools is allowing, I think, some optimism because of the effectiveness and the rapidity of all these decisions.
Yes, and Mr. Letta, I think what I would like to hook on to is what you just said, the implementation. Let's talk about the implementation, how it really is going to move whatever there is done with the ECB or the European Commission level. Let's talk a little bit about the real economy. And you mentioned earlier on the SMEs. The SMEs, the small and medium-sized enterprises, actually the micro SMEs, those with less than 10 people, employees, less than 2 million euros worth of a turnover, are making up, 96% of all European SMEs, and there are over 25 million of them. Now, bank bailouts usually are very unpopular. You don't want to do that necessarily as a taxpayer, even as a government. There is a conflict of interest. However, if you think about the underlying economy of the businesses getting their money to fund their businesses, 2/3 from the banks, bailouts and the banking system, and this liquidity being, starting at the top level, being filtered through to the underlying economy is super crucial. Do you think that it will actually be really effective, this implementation?
And this is the crucial point. I hope so. I hope so, but bureaucracy is a big challenge. And national bureaucracy and European bureaucracy, they are both there. I think it's a big challenge for this period because we need to beat bureaucracy, we need to be fast, and we need to to have money as SMEs to tackle this lack of liquidity now. Because only having money, you can safeguard employment. Because the big problem of unemployment is not only the problem of promises or guarantees, it is a very real and very concrete situation. If you don't have money, if you don't have supply, if you don't have consumers, it is very complicated for you as an SME to maintain or to guarantee jobs you are having in the normal period. The only way is to have liquidity. And if you have liquidity and at the same time, if you have all the intervention on social guarantees that I mentioned before, so you are able to. So this is why I say they have to be very, very fast. It is very important that this new tool, this recovery fund, can be implemented during this summer, around this summer, not later on. And it is important that it is not through too many intermediations. It is very important to have a direct relationship with SMEs and with the entrepreneurs, because only like that you can allow them to invest and to safeguard employment and to start again. Because crisis is also a period of great opportunities. There are many opportunities, new jobs or digitalization, new demands, and we have to work in that direction, and we have to help those who want to take risks and to take new challenges. It is a period in which we have to help these people.
And no bureaucracy or very low bureaucracy. Do you imagine a world where an owner of a business, of a small business, can directly go to their bank and say, here, I need money. I've not been opened as my restaurant for the past 2 months. I need it now, or I will close forever. And the bank just saying, yes, of course. Do you think that is realistic? Because that is direct money. That is, I don't have any turnover for the past 2 months. My cash reserves are gone. I need to open on Monday, and I have to, let's say, buy the food I'm going to cook and then provide in my restaurants. Let's make it really specific, Mr. Letta. Do you think this will actually happen?
It is possible if there are clear guarantees by the states and the European Union, and if these loans are long-term loans. I underline this point, that is very crucial. We need to negotiate at European level, not short-term loans, not 2 years, 3 years, because I'm sure that this crisis will last and will last for a bit. So we need to have long-term loans. These loans can be reabsorbed in the next years, but we need at least 10 years or 20 years maturity loans. That is crucial. If we are able to do so, I think I am optimistic, and I am optimistic because the need to relaunch the economy is the crucial need for the European Union itself to resist, to survive. I don't see a European Union surviving to a failure in this phase. Failure in this very moment would be crucial and decisive for the future of the European Union.
Yeah, and Mr. Letta, let me just ask a provocative question, because we are now hearing more and more commentators talking about the second wave of COVID-19 even being worse. And I'm asking everybody around me, do you think a second wave, like Singapore, for example, seems to be experiencing right now, means a second wave of lockdowns? And what would that do to our economy? Do you see a second lockdown potentially? Or do you think there is going to be, no, we have to start really living with the idea to co-live with COVID-19, whatever it is, but a second lockdown would just kill our economy?
I think a second lockdown will kill our economy, and I think also we learned lessons from the first wave. And I think there are many possibilities to co-live today because of the lessons we learned. But we have to be very good in applying rules, in applying all the procedures, and in being able to be very good and so in the reopening process. The reopening have to be with all cautious red alarms and activities. We have to be very good in that point. If we are very good with this cautiousness, I think we are able to be optimistic for the second. I hope not, but in case of a second wave.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's just conclude our very, very interesting and in-depth discussion with something I would like to share a screen with, again, Mr. Letta, if you allow me. So I'm going to go into the second, there we go. Okay, so that is your own roadmap, basically, Mr. Letta, to the new post-COVID world. And you say there are 3 very important points. The transatlantic relationship, there should be a new one, to reestablish the multilateralism globally, and also to rethink the current structure of globalization. And I would like you to, very short, also in layman's terms, because we are all not politicians or politic professors or have been too deep into the issue, what that really means, what you're saying here, because for me personally, I think they're extremely crucial points.
I just mentioned here my big priorities in terms of international affairs. The world of international affairs is completely shaken by what is happening. We understood that a new transatlantic relationship, a new transatlantic community is very important, because we saw the decoupling between the US and Europe, and also between the UK and Europe. That was not good for the way in which we managed this COVID-19 crisis, but also we saw the collapse of multilateralism. Multilateral institutions were completely marginalized during this crisis, only nation-based, and it's not enough, because this crisis, globalization, we have to reshape it, considering what does it mean cooperate, and what does it mean that a virus or pollution, they don't need passport to pass through borders. That's a big, big problem that we are facing today with the hyperconnection. This is why a new multilateralism is necessary, but we have to build up, because it's with the present situation, multilateralism collapsed. So I think these 3 main missions, topics are in the agenda for the next future. And I hope our leaders will try to think. In our universities, we are starting to discuss with our fellows, we have scholars, and we are students, and it will be a fascinating path.
Well, let's hope for the best. Thank you so much for being with us here on Mentoring TV. Enrico Letta, I can't thank you enough for your insights and definitely out of the box thinking. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck.